The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
On the Coordination Council this week's decision, David Green passport-only admission will apply from December 1st to the following eateries, restaurants, cafes and bars, both outdoor and indoor, cinemas, theaters, opera houses, museums, concert halls, entertainment centers, casinos and gambling sites, spa centers, fitness clubs, hotels and aerial lifts in winter resorts. These requirements also apply to the guests of the listed facilities. As for entertainment centers for children, green passports are mandatory for citizens aged over 18. According to Deputy Health Minister Tamar Gabunia, those citizens who recovered from COVID-19 will receive permanent green status. Unlike Tamar Gabunia, Amiran Gamkrelidze, head of NCDC, directly stated that he had a different position on the issue. Here is all we have on the issue currently in one story we put together for you.
The government has officially allowed the country's green COVID passports to take effect on December 1, though it's not as green as it is in other countries. Green status is given to a person who has been vaccinated or has received a full 2 doses of the vaccine, also to those who have contracted COVID infection. However, 14 days must have passed since the laboratory confirmed case of COVID, in which case the so-called period no longer applies, the lock is uplifted and they will be given a green status permanently. The government dismantled the locking mechanism and granted the same privileges to those who recovered from COVID-19 but are not vaccinated, the same way as those who are vaccinated. This approach is critically evaluated by health professionals, and they say that recovering from COVID does not rule out the risk of reinfection, and it does not mean that your immunity to the virus is strong. Accordingly, they say that this decision by the government is populist and has a political nature. We can say boldly that we're playing with fire. Today, we have a very high mortality rate, and at the same time, making such decisions is highly risky, which means that in the near future, we will have new waves of COVID. These waves may not even end, in which we're now, and we will have high mortality rates. This rule will only encourage anti-vaxxers once again that vaccination is not necessary. This will convert the message that whoever recovers from COVID is free from responsibility and will have a permanent green passport. This regime absolutely ignores all the healthy ideas, including practices of countries where COVID was practically defeated and people returned to normal life, where these initiatives originated from and were implemented in. They make these ideas lose their meaning. Statements regarding the decision were also made by the members of the Coordination Council. Deputy Minister of Health Tamar Gabunia explains the launch of a permanent green passport for those who recovered from COVID with a low rate of reinfection. By September, there were about 5,000 people in our entire cohort who have recontracted the virus. Thus, the reinfection rate is not high based on our 2 years of experience. For us now, the main thing is to introduce a green passport as a mechanism and to have a more positive attitude towards the introduction of a green passport than additional stress and discomfort for society. Gabunia also justifies herself by saying that the decision to issue a green passport will be painless for society. What we cannot oppose is that several thousand of people will easily enjoy green status without being vaccinated. Amiran Gamkrelidze, director of NCDC, does not have a similar position to Gabunia. He openly states that his position on the issue is different. The issue is resolved by consensus. It does not mean that the Center for Disease Control will say anything and it must be accepted. Our position was different. The Coordinating Council made the decision by a majority for a certain period of time. We do not know whether the decision of the Coordinating Council to adopt a permanent green status for those recovered from COVID was a consensus, but the Prime Minister Irakli says that he will make a great contribution to the easing of the rules established for the green passport. When this plan and vision was presented to me, very difficult options were put in place. I have minimized it and adopted to existing reality and the wishes of the population in order to get a more balanced approach. Today, health professionals unequivocally agree that NCDC should have a clear position on pandemic management, and decisions in this case should have been made not by politicians, but by health professionals and epidemiologists. As a representative of the field, I believe that the position of NCDC should be separated from the position of the government, because they, like all of us in the field of health, have much more responsibility for human health than any other political figure. In this case, they should act in the interest of the country and not what decision is made by coordinating council, where health professionals have a minority of votes. In my opinion, both the Ministry of Health and Center for Disease Control should speak more boldly and loudly about what is right. Recent practice shows that adjusting to the role of infectious diseases specialists or epidemiologists in the country has become a proven method. Amiran Gamkrelidze's statement also confirms to some extent that the opinion of the specialists is no longer partially taken into account when managing the coronavirus pandemic. Eventually, they make decisions that serve the common public interest. Less, we can say that the introduction of a permanent green passport for those who recovered from COVID but will be unvaccinated is a clear example of this practice.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.